can see the world is getting older and older and older until we get to 2017. And here we see that most countries, well, Africa is still fairly young in their teens, but the rest of the world, typically in their 30s. In a few countries, Europe starting to get quite old in their 40s. Let's have a look what's going to happen in the future. By 2060, the majority of the world will be old. For the first time in history, there will be more old people, people over the age of 60, than young people, people under the age of 20. For the first time in humanity's history. Most countries are going to be average age of around in the 40s, with even some countries, China included, and Europe, average age in the 50s. And this is going to have a huge impact on the typical population pyramid. If you look here at Italy, Italy was the first country to be classified as old. People over the age of 60 more than people under the age of 20. And have a look at their population pyramid and look at the line as it moves up as Italy gets older and older, and there's a thinning in the base. So by 2050, the average age in Italy will be 51. And have a look at how few people will be in their teens. Now, there's a problem with this population pyramid because it isn't shaped as a pyramid, is it? The shape is closer to resembling a coffin. And here's the disruption. The youngsters have to pay for the elderly people's retirement. And can you see the shortfall? This is going to be a huge, huge disruption. Have a look at the UK. Again, average age climbing up. 35, 36, all the way into the 40s. This data is actually pre-Brexit. And what will probably happen as we start to feel the impact of Brexit is that average age will climb and the base will thin. We'll start to look a little bit more like Italy. And it's not just a developed world problem. Have a look at China and India. You can see all around the world, people are getting older and older. And this is the reason why it's predicted around about 2060, India will become the world's largest economy, bigger than China. It's because they have a superior demographic spread in their population pyramid. And you can see how China's is thinning out as well. And Japan, they're in a pretty state of dire. So starting off at about 127 million, and look how the figure just drops and how the age increases up into the 60s. And the predictions are that if this continues, if this trend continues, within the next 100 years, the Japanese race will actually be threatened by extinction. And if anyone's in retail, this is an interesting fact for retailers. But let's look at the younger generation. Who here is children who have been born since the 1990s? Anyone with children born since the 1990s? Okay. The current statistics are that your children will probably live until, all things working out okay, they'll live until the age of 125. Now think about it. This is the first generation that's going to live through 3 different centuries. The 20th, the 21st, and the 22nd century. And if you're living till the age of 120, it has to change your views about big institutional things like perhaps marriage. Because if you get married in your early 20s and you live until you're 125, it means you're going to be married for 100 years. It has to change your views about jobs, careers, lifetime learning. It has to change your idea about retirement. You're not going to be retiring at 60 if you're living until you're 125. The second big mega trend that I think is going to have a dramatic change on the world is shifting social values, our norms, our views of the world, and how people and their behaviors and how this impacts and changes the world. And specifically, the point at which humans and technology interface and come together, specifically with AI and machine and robotic technology coming to the fore. We need to be thinking about how the attitudes to these things are going to change. And we need to understand this new generation, these 5 people. I mean, these 5 people, it's they're just models in a photograph, but actually their generation, the generation that they represent. Actually, I think this picture is my favorite in this presentation, because these 5 individuals are probably texting one another. They're probably in relationships with one another. And here they are sitting next to each other and texting one another. And it's not that they're lazy, it's not that they don't know how to communicate. This is how this generation is wired. And this generation is changing everything from how they connect, collaborate, interact, engage, and involved. Let me give you an example here. This is Dave Kirpin, and he's a social media expert, and he wrote a book, and he was invited to do a talk at the Area Hotel. Now, the Area Hotel is one of the best hotels on the Las Vegas Strip, and he was at the check-in, and he'd been standing at check-in for over an hour. And in his frustration, he wrote this tweet: "No Vegas hotel could be worth this long wait. Over an hour to check in, #fail." And he hit the send button, and it went off into the Twitter sphere. And he sat there, hoping, waiting, expectantly, that the senior leadership and senior management team in the back office would pick up his tweet and would come bursting through the doors and sort out the problem that they had at their front desk. Now, what do you think happened? Absolutely nothing. A few minutes later, he gets a tweet from the Rio Vegas, a hotel down the drag, and they say this: "Sorry about the bad experience, Dave. Hope the rest of your stay in Vegas goes well." What do you like about that tweet? What I like about it is that there's empathy behind it. There's caring. They're not trying to sell him a room. They're not trying to say, tough luck, Dave. If you'd booked in at the Rio Vegas, you'd be in the spa by now, or in our casino. Haha, yeah, tough luck. It's the kind of tweet you'd expect to get from a friend. So where do you think Dave stays the next time he visits Las Vegas? He stays at the Rio Vegas. He has a great time. He goes home. He clicks on the like button, on the Facebook like button for the Rio Vegas. About 2 weeks later, a friend phones him and says, "Dave, I see you've liked the Rio Vegas. It's my 50th birthday. I want to take some friends there. Would you recommend them?" Dave goes, "Yes." So about 200 people are shipped off to the Rio Vegas for a weekend of great fun and partying. And Dave looks at this and says, something really interesting is happening here. So he meets with the general manager of the Rio Vegas the next time he's there. And he says to them, and they're sitting down, they're having a nice cup of coffee, and he says, "I love what your social media team is doing." The general manager looks at him and says, "We don't have a social media team." Dave says, "Oh, okay. Well, I love what you're doing with your Twitter feed." General manager looks at Dave and goes, "We have a Twitter feed?" At which case they both become intrigued, and they do a little bit of investigation. And they uncover that there are these 5 individuals, these 5 digital natives, who are working at the Rio Vegas. And they've taken it upon themselves to set up a Twitter account. They're using hashtags and Google alerts, and they're entering into conversations with their customers or anyone who's talking about their industry or Las Vegas. They're just entering into this conversation. Now, most of us here in this room are what they call digital immigrants. And we're looking at this and we're thinking, why on earth would you create a Twitter feed? And if you did think it was a good idea, why wouldn't you put it through the company suggestion box or the innovation project plan pipeline and set up committee meetings and task meetings and have it approved before you went ahead and did it? This younger generation are looking at this and saying, why on earth wouldn't you do this? It's as natural as the air they breathe. And this generation has been born during a time when every bit of information is available on every device, at any time, anywhere. And that's the revolution that we're seeing around us. And it's not just for rich people in rich developed countries. This phone